Morning Creatives. As mentioned, I am Clarence Heyward, and I am an artist. It's a lot for me to say that. I wouldn't get in more, but every time I say I'm an artist out loud, the feelings just hit me. It's still pretty surreal because not that long ago, this wasn't my life. When Creative Mornings reached out to me for the talk, I was slightly nervous, but I was honored. I've gotten used to the artist talks, but this is different. It's kind of early and there's no wine involved. And then I learned that the thing was promised, and I thought, man, look at God. Because Creative Mornings couldn't know that I am who I am today because of a promise. A promise is defined as a declaration or assurance that one will do a particular thing or that a particular thing will happen. Most of you here today don't know my story, who I am, or even how I got here. But here's how promise applies to me. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and if anyone is familiar with the films Crooklyn, Do the Right Thing, or Juice, you've seen my childhood through my adolescence. My childhood was basically a Spike Lee joint, and my teenage years were lived pretty recklessly. I'm the product of teenage parents, and my father was killed when I was 3. I grew up in Brooklyn in the 90s. Up to age 5, me, my mom, and my younger brother lived with my grandmother, who was super religious. So my earliest memories are rooted in countless hours of Bible study and church shut-ins. It was my grandmother who first noticed my talent and promised me that I would be great one day because of it. Like many of you, I learned of my artistic ability pretty early. I started coloring and coloring books with my mom at 2, leading to me drawing cartoon and comic book characters, most notably Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man. My mom enrolled me in local community arts programs, which in a way normalized my gift. There were other kids there who could draw, like me, or even better. I later attended a specialized middle school where I met my favorite art teacher of all time. Her name was Miss Padilla. She challenged me in ways I had never experienced. She saw potential and promise in my work, but she would say things like, yeah, you can draw, so what? Or, you know you can do better. Looking back, those don't really sound like words of encouragement, but in Brooklyn linguistics, they are. I love languages wrapped in toughness, and in all honesty, she prepared me for the critiques that I would receive later on in life. After middle school, I would attend the prestigious LaGuardia High School of Arts in Manhattan, whose alumni list is too long to even list. Upon acceptance, I felt like I had made it. I really thought I was the man. Thousands of kids apply, but only 150 or so are accepted each year. You can't tell me nothing. Well, at least until the first day of drawing 1, I sat in a room with 20 or more students who were all gifted. Some of these kids were using tools that weren't even on the supplies list. I mean, I was good, but I wasn't prodigy good. But this new environment pushed me to grow. I went to see Miss Padilla after freshman year and showed her some of my work. And she replied, "What is this? I expected you to be better by now." I was spending more time in Manhattan than Brooklyn at this point, so the tough love thing didn't really work for me anymore. It was pretty offensive. But Miss Padilla, if you're listening, I still love you, just not in the tough love Brooklyn way anymore. But I do understand that there was a method to the madness. At this point, you might think I was on a path to fulfill some artistic destiny of some sort, but no, art didn't feel special anymore. I began to put my energy in other things. I had friends in Brooklyn, I was on a basketball team, and I started a job at Starbucks of all places. There wasn't much time for art. I also met my muse in high school. She later became my wife, so it worked out. My only condition for college was it couldn't be in New York. So after graduating high school, I just left. I was off to North Carolina. I did forget to mention that I had a stepfather, and we don't speak much now, and I only mention him because of this. He dropped me off at the Amtrak station for college. He looked at me and said, "Hey man, college isn't for everybody, and if you need to come back home, it's okay. Your mother will understand. I promise." I looked and nodded in agreement. I didn't realize it at the time, but the college isn't for everybody part stayed with me for a while. Anyway, I wasn't exactly ready for college. At this point, my artistic practice was fueled by my competitive nature. Central, although great, wasn't exactly LaGuardia. There weren't any prodigies there. I got lost in the sauce. I was definitely less than a model student, and I barely got by. My major was art education. Yeah, I wanted to be an artist, but I knew that I needed a job. Senior year arrived, and I began student teaching. I was informed that the starting salary was $27,252, a number that I would never forget. And it was at that second that I knew I would never become an art teacher. At that time, any move I made was motivated by money. So after college, I took a job at a local water company. I had no experience or even any interest in the work, but the starting salary was more than that $27,252. Time passed, and eventually I would get married and have two children. And before you know it, I had worked at this job over 12 years. I thought I had achieved the American dream. I had the cars, the house, and even the dog. At this point, there wasn't any art in my life. I was now in management, but miserable as hell at work. I call this stage my midlife crisis because of the dramatic turn my life would take after this point. Over the years, my grandmother will often call me and ask, "Hey baby, when you gonna start drawing again?" And I would just brush her off like, "Artists don't make any money." I hadn't encountered anyone who made a living in real life as an artist. She didn't know about art, but she knew I was promised greatness if I just used my gift. After talking to my wife about my frustrations, she looked at me and said, and I'll never forget these words, "Just be an artist." Easier said than done, I thought. I had no plan, but she knew I had a purpose. Soon after, we went to church, and the pastor preached a word on burying your talent. Normally, I just go to church and listen to the stories, and I've never really felt a connection. But on this day, the pastor was speaking directly to me. I'm not real emotional, but I cried on the inside. For the next year, I dedicated myself to art. After work, on weekends, and even on family vacations, I would just draw or paint. I attended artist workshops and exhibitions in preparation for what was next. My wife and I created a website, we made business cards, and I even got an Instagram page. Exactly 1 year after that conversation with my wife, it was time, and I left my job. On my last day at work, I cried, but this time on the outside. I was officially an artist. That's when the real work started. There's no blueprint to becoming a professional artist. I feel really blessed to have been connected with some amazing people who have been generous with their knowledge and have helped me along my way. Everything that I learned over the years without art has helped me with where I am now. So I don't really regret the path I've taken to get here. I'm not saying I do it all the same way again, but I do appreciate my journey, and I'm a better artist because of it. Being an artist is my purpose, because that's where the promise lies. It's in the walk. We were all born with a gift. Use it, and I promise you'll be great. I'm not an artist for any other reason besides the fact that I'm supposed to be. It's really that simple. Not for money, not for fame, and not for recognition. That sounds cliche, but it's the truth. If I never sold another painting, I'd still be happy. I'd still paint every day, and I'd still be an artist. I promise. Thank you. I wanted to end with a picture of me and my grandmother at my last solo exhibition. And this is the part I usually start crying, but I'm not. But thank you.
Clarence, I love that you ended on the picture with your grandmother. I would love to kick off our conversation about kind of your journey with, I love that it's clear that she noticed your talent really early on, and I love that she kind of kept encouraging you to start drawing again. What does she think of your work?
So we never really talk about the specifics as far as like what I paint or, you know, what it looks like, but she just loves the fact that I'm doing it. When I first left my job, she would always ask, when are you getting a job? And I would be like, this is what you told me to do. You told me to be an artist.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's kind of old school. So she's like, well, how are you going to make money? I'm like, I'm going to be an artist and I'll figure it out. So when she came to the exhibition and she started seeing red dots, then she kind of understands now. She calls all, you know, all her friends and family and tells them about me.
One of the things in your artwork that you often incorporate is text to create a direct dialogue with the audience. Can you tell us a little bit about the dialogues you've chosen to have with your audience through your art and why those are important to you?
Actually, I can thank North Carolina Central for that. I took a couple graphic design classes. So I've always kind of been fond of playing around with that kind of stuff. But the themes or the stories of my artwork usually comes from what I'm dealing with at the time. So the work is always pretty current because it's always, I'm always watching the news or listening to a podcast or having conversations with my daughters or my wife. And usually that stuff just sparks my creativity.
Yeah. Did you, when you kind of started getting back into painting and drawing, one of the questions is, did you have a schedule or how did you like kind of figure out that level of focus? And
so in the beginning, I treated it like a second job. So when I would get off of work, you know, I would come, you know, eat dinner with the family. But pretty much at night, I just, you know, worked and committed, or weekends, I committed. Yeah, I knew it would take a lot of work because I hadn't been in it for a long time. So I just took it seriously and just dedicated any free time that I had. So it wasn't exactly a schedule. It was if I wasn't working or eating or playing with my family or whatever, I was doing art of some type, whether it be going to a workshop or actually in the studio at the house just painting.
one of the things that you said that really stuck with me was this idea that like when you got to Central, you got lost in the sauce. If you had to talk to yourself at Central, like now being where you are, what advice might you give yourself so that doesn't happen?
I mean, college was pretty much my first time outside of New York, like on my own. So that's why I say I got lost in the sauce, because it was almost like I went from being a kid to total freedom. I could do whatever I want. And yeah, I got caught up in a lot of stuff that probably I shouldn't have, but yeah.
Another question was, at what point did you become confident in becoming a full-time artist? Was this based on having a lot of commissioned work and then your full-time work was getting in the way, or did you like what was that journey like for you?
I don't advise anybody to do this, but when I decided to leave my job, I had never sold anything. I had the confidence because to be honest, my wife believed in me and she kept telling me like, I know you can do it. And we're pretty honest with each other. So I knew if the work was bad, she would tell me. And the fact that, I mean, she supported me, like I had support. She really said, I know you can do it, let's do it. And so like, she really helped me a lot. Yeah, I didn't really know about the business of art, so I didn't think about commissions. I didn't think about selling work. I really just knew like, I'm gonna make it work. People are gonna see it, and this is how I'm gonna live. That was my only plan. Like, I didn't know how much money I would or could make. Um, I mean, I learned pretty fast. I mean, after I left my job and, you know, the bills started coming, I figured out some strategies on how to sell work. I mean, that's when that part became a job. So the business side to me is a job, marketing and all that stuff. But I had experience from that, from work, being in management.
So the LaGuardia High School for Music, Arts, and Performing Arts definitely played a pivotal role in your story. And I'm curious a little bit to hear any stories that you have from that time of like how that impacted you as an artist, what you learned there that you kind of still carry with you today as like nuggets from either classmates or your classes or any experience that you had there.
There's a lot of talented people out here. Um, for a while, like all I would hear in school was, "Oh, this person went here, that person went here." So I knew, like the possibility of making it as far as being creative was possible. But you know, you can, I mean, you look at some people and say, "Oh, well, they're just special, they're just different." And me, like, I'm a kid from Brooklyn, so I'm looking like, yeah, they can do that, but I'm just me. So I never really put myself in the same context. Um, I have plenty of stories to tell. I don't know how many I can tell on this show, but I mean, it was a great time.
We're an adult audience. We can take it.
But being there, it really was like going to like, I don't know, some conservatory or whatever. We spent half of the day in art classes. So like, we were working with marble in high school. I mean, I didn't even do that in college, and I look up the cost of this stuff, and it's crazy that they let us do all of that stuff in high school. But they really let us. We had complete creative freedom. We had a lot of critiques. Yeah, and then everyone was so creative that it was just inspiring to be there all day.
The audience is really curious to hear about your current projects. So what are you working on? Like, can you tell us a little bit about any current or future projects that you have going?
Yeah, well, right now I'm working on a couple of pretty high profile commissions. And I have a museum show scheduled for 2022, so I'm working on that. And yeah, besides those things, I'm still just painting whatever I want to paint on a daily basis. You know, yeah.
Was how did you get out of a competitive mindset when it comes to your creativity and art?
In a way, I'm still competitive, but now it's not with everybody else. It's just with myself. So now when I paint, I just try to make a better painting than the last one. I don't ever want to be comfortable. Like, I don't ever want to say, "Oh, I know a formula." I want to feel something and make something. And yeah, so the competitiveness doesn't go away. I'm always going to be competing with my last painting.
Can you talk about some of the themes in your work and other artists who may have influenced you in terms of style or theme?
I think I kind of the themes of my work really are things that I'm dealing with in my life. So yeah, a lot of my work is about, you know, being a Black person in America, which I am. A lot of my work features my wife or my two daughters because I'm going through life with them, and sometimes I paint the experiences. Being a father for the first time, I paint that. I try to just interpret my story and put it on canvas, just because I mean it's the story I know the best, and I mean it's kind of like therapy too, right? I go through something and I get to make work about it, so my kids get to see themselves in these institutions that they normally wouldn't see themselves. And as far as inspirations, my biggest inspiration is Barkley Hendricks, but there's others on the list. I mean, him for sure. Like he's like the GOAT. But I'm a fan of like Titus Kafour. I like Kerry James Marshall. Um, a lot of people laugh when I tell them this because our styles are so different. But I like Henry Taylor. But I like him as a person. I think he's like he says the things I want to say, and people get it. But I don't know if it will go over the same way if I said it. But like I like Amy Sherrill's work. I'm a big fan of Charles White, and I always go back to Aaron Douglas because I had to do a book report on him, and so I always go back to his work. I like his line work, so yeah.
I was just curious, you said in there that it's like therapy, painting your own experiences. And I, I was wondering if there's a piece that really felt like kind of captured a moment or experience that you were having in your life that you wanted to talk to.
Yeah. So the piece with me and my grandmother that I did this piece last year, that one was a pretty big one for me because of all the emotions tied into it. So the shirt that I'm wearing is a shirt that I purchased from TJ Maxx, and after I bought it, I felt like extremely guilty. And then there was like a lot of civil unrest going on in the country, and I started, you know, getting in my head thinking about what does it mean to be African American. So that one was a big one. And then it's like most of my work, it was a family affair. So like my daughter took the picture. Um, yeah, so I mean, I like the whole process of making that. I like the thought behind it. It took a while to make. Um, yeah, so I mean, that's I guess an example of how I work. Or
Yeah. I'll make this the last question. So, and I think it's a great one. What's the most liberating aspect of being a creative for you?
I get to get up every day and do what I love or what I feel like I was born to do, and I get to tell my children that they can do whatever they want to do in life. So when when I was in a career I was unhappy with, I couldn't really say, hey, you can be whatever you wanted to be, because I was just doing it for the money. And I mean, you probably could tell I was unhappy. But now I get up, I spend a lot of time with them. I mean, sometimes they give me ideas. I'm not painting any unicorns, but sometimes they give me ideas. Um, yeah, so it's more like a family affair. I mean, I treat it like a family business. I want everybody involved, and so liberating is just freedom. Like I can just be me. I would encourage you all, if you haven't already, to find your purpose and then walk in it. That's where the promise lies. It's in the walk.